I know, I'm trying. Oh, welcome back. This is episode 25.
25. Our insurance just went down.
We hit that magical mark.
Yeah.
Well, that's only
we're now a real adult.
We are, yeah. But, oh man,
I don't know about that.
I was gonna say I don't know about that either.
Hey, do you wanna just shout out your stupid bad oops from last week, Steve? Do you just want to start there?
Which one of my many bad oops?
Let's talk about your editing skills.
Yeah. So I don't know if that was me or my computer. It's one of the two.
You, Steven.
I'll take the blame, but yeah, I don't know what happened, and I apologize for the 7 people that downloaded the first version of episode 24, where the audio was completely garbled and mistimed, and I have no idea how or what happened, but I quickly spent a few hours redoing everything on the Monday and got it back out by Monday evening, so I do apologize that you had to have a horrible edited first edition of that podcast.
It made me sound like such a jerk. I just kept
I'm
interrupting
glad I didn't.
Everyone.
I'm kind of glad I didn't download it.
Yeah. But I mean, you interrupt us all the time anyways, so it wasn't really but this anything was different.
This was awful. This was different. Like, the first few times it happened, I was like, man, I was really a jerk. I didn't know I was interrupting Sid so bad. And then eventually I was really listening in. I was like, wait a minute. Well, I would ask them a question, and then I would answer them before they gave me their answer, but like I was responding, and then your answers would come through afterwards, and I was in a very weird place. Like, this isn't right. I have to tell Steven. Like, I gotta tell him now.
Yeah, and I was glad you did, and it actually worked out really well that I was sick that day from work, so I was able to sit down and like do it in the middle of the day instead of having to wait until I got home from work.
Yeah. I'm Aaron.
Yeah, and I'm Steve, and there's Sid.
And I'm Sid. Yep. Hello. We should probably introduce ourselves, 2.5 minutes later.
Threw off the whole thing. It felt good.
At this point, people should just know who we are, right? We just got to be that, like, conceited. We're not that introduce important. Ourselves.
Oh, God. Wow.
Wow. So, yeah. Anything else new with you guys this week has been fun?
I've been going to school.
Yeah. I've been working.
That's new. I haven't gone back to school in like 10, 15 years at least. Oh, God. I hate it.
Education's fun, though. It's good, though.
So I will say this. My communications class, while it is challenging, it's actually very interesting stuff. And I can use that during this podcast. And actually, I had a few people in the class when I did my little intro bio thing, because it's all online. I mentioned that I was part of a podcast, and there was like 2 or 3 people that were like, oh, which one? I want to hear it. What are you on? So yeah, that was pretty interesting. Everything else is just easy, basic stuff.
Looking at the numbers from after you had said that, I think they may have downloaded. So if it was you guys, thank you very much.
And then they stopped. They're like, this is garbage. Why did we come here? And then they don't have the heart to tell Sid.
Yeah, probably not. That's okay, though.
I'm enjoying college, man. It's different because I didn't go to college at all after high school. I went direct into the Navy. And I see all these kids that are there for the college experience, and I have nothing against that. I think that's awesome. But then there's just me, like this dude who's just like, not only do I say everything I want to say or what's on my mind, which drives some of my teachers insane, but they think I'm a bad influence on the other kids. But I'm like, eventually they're going to get here. They're going to hate life. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But like I found that a lot of the things that I'm learning are very useful for life, especially in like econ and accounting. And I decided to major in accounting. I did a couple papers this week. My biggest thing is Jess and I opened our Thrones of Errane booster boxes, and we got some cool stuff. I'm getting into Oathbreaker. Pauper Commander. I've encouraged a couple people to get into Pauper Commander with me, so that's going to be fun. And I'm building my Monty Python deck for Magic, so very excited about all three of those. I haven't built a new deck in a while, and I really need to tune some of my other decks with some of the new cards and really get them boosted. Like my Pirates deck just got a time traveling pirate in it, so taking extra turns is fun. And then besides that, decorating Leonidas's room. I finished the skirt, did some woodwork there, learned to use a Craig jig, and now I'm painting his closet. I ripped down the closet shelf, and we're going to put a new closet system in. And I did some TIE Fighter shelves. So been cool. It's been a very, very, very busy week. Had a lot going on. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I can't say I've been that busy, but it's been a fun week. Wife has a lot of baking orders. So it's also our last market of the year coming up tomorrow, no, Sunday, which would be the day before this came out. So yesterday, for those listening,
Oh, wow.
yesterday was our last market. But she's the last 2 nights, all she's been doing is baking. She's got, I want to say 7 dozen cupcakes on order, 4 cakes, macarons, and then she's doing sugar cookies for the actual event.
Now, when you say the last
yum.
bake of the year, is that they open up? Like, do you guys have an inside market that happens, or is market seriously only during the hot months?
So the one that we're a part of, it's just a local community farmers market. It's in the parking lot of the high school, not far from our place, every second Sunday. And so it started I think we started in May. We went to the second one, not the first one. And then we did all of them until the end of July, and then we had vacations and stuff. And so it's been just the big one since. And then this Sunday is the very last one. Yeah.
So to answer my question, you're saying that you
there
don't
are
do
indoor
one?
markets, yes,
Okay,
but we're not a part of it. Yes.
Okay. All right on.
Yeah. She gets a lot of business from the markets. I basically just work the table for her. So.
Steve, do you like cats? Well, I think poodles are probably my favorite dog. I think that
poodles are a little bit better.
I think that they're hyperallergenic. I think that it's really cool. So do you like cats though? I think that if I got a Saint Bernard, that would be pretty okay. Yeah, it'd be pretty good.
Oh my goodness sakes.
Yeah. Oh, one update is my son had his first Pokemon League day.
That's cool.
How did he do?
He got his ass handed to him. he went 0-2, he said. So they do a best out of 3 against the same person every day or every Thursday. And he's like, Dad, this girl in class beat me and she didn't even come to any of the prep classes. I'm like, yeah, but if she knows the game, she knows the game. Like, she's going to work you if she knows what she's doing, whether she came to prep or not. I'm like, but it's part of you learning. You're going to lose, and you're going to lose bad.
Oh, so that's the problem.
Then you're going to figure it out, and
No,
then you're going to kick some ass.
Well, I mean, that's not what Steve said, though. See, so it's the parents' fault that the kids are bad at Pokemon. So I'll blame.
Oh,
Steve.
it's totally my fault. I haven't played with him, so
his loss.
Totally
his loss is Steven's fault. Steve didn't prepare him, so.
No, I have not prepared him at all. We'll try tomorrow.
Did you want to tell him what our topic is?
We should probably get to that now. So, yeah. Might be a good idea. So
I'm Errane. This is Sid and Steve. I'm just kidding.
So the topic actually came about through one of your classes, Errane. And was it a history class? I don't remember what you said it was.
I can.
You say it. Yes, you say where it came from.
All right, I'll do this. Yeah, so I'm sitting in history, and my professor, as I said, I say a lot of things in classes, but in this class I stay pretty quiet, okay? However, I am terrible at knowing anything about politics or history and things like that, and this has to do with both. So we have to do debates in the history class over like uneasy subjects. For instance, you have 4 different debate teams, and the way that our professor does it is you fight for one side, then as the aggressor, like you were fighting for something, and then the other team fights as the rebuttal to that, and then another team acts as a judge and the other team acts as the audience, and it rotates, right? So the subject matter that I had to do was in the 1920s, immigration was a huge deal, and I had to uncomfortably argue against immigration, that we should significantly reduce immigration, which was a popular theme back then. But I'm not sure whether I really agree with it or not, right? It was had a lot of racial tendencies behind it, but like that's the whole thing. She makes it very clear, hey, I put you people in these uncomfortable positions. You just have to argue as if you were in the time, and it's really cool. She gives you pieces from that time. So our next topic, which I get to be a judge for, it was supposed to be Thursday, but it's not happening due to a class being canceled. But it's about internment camps, aka concentration camps in America, which is really what they were. They tried to label them something different as if it was something different, but they're concentration camps for the Japanese after World War II started, when we entered after Pearl Harbor was bombed by the Japanese. So our next one is to talk about those internment camps, or concentration camps, whatever. And so at the time FDR was president, and for anybody who doesn't know about FDR, he ran for a 4th term. Like he would have won, or he did win his 4th term, but he died. We haven't gotten him dying yet. But either way, I remember he did something ridiculous. And so it's kind of funny. She's going through the history of the concentration camps that were putting the Japanese in, and she specifically throws out the executive order that FDR wrote. And yeah, you're getting a history lesson today. So FDR signs Executive Order 9066. This was the official executive order to put the Japanese in the concentration camps in like secluded, like desert areas and marshy areas within the inner portion of the United States, due to fear mongering that was happening, specifically the concentration of the Japanese in California. They were saying, hey, if we have all these Japanese Americans, which like 75% of them were American citizens, and the rest, even though they weren't officially American citizens, it's because that America wasn't letting them become citizens, but they had like lived here for decades. So it was a really weird time, because the bombing of Pearl Harbor, that's Hawaii. California is, but Pearl Harbor, or Hawaii, is essentially between Japan and California. So they felt like if Japan was to raid America moving forward to the West Coast, that the Japanese would help. So that's what FDR's reasoning was. Really, it was just a bunch of greedy white farmers in California they were pissed that the Japanese were more efficient at farming the land than they were. So they just were greedy, stupid. Anyway, that's a whole different thing. It's a really bad spot on America. And FDR is generally seen as one of our best presidents we've ever had. So, and yet he wrote an executive order to put the Japanese in these concentration camps. So as soon as she said Executive Order 9066, I looked up, and I'm trying to pay attention. I'm taking notes, but I look up at her and I keep my mouth shut. At the end of class, I went, "Professor," and she goes, "Yes," and I go, "Do you think that Palpatine's Order 66 to kill the Jedi is based on Executive Order 9066? And she looks at me and she goes, I don't know. And I've never been asked that before. I was like, I'm sorry. And I left. So obviously she's not a big fan of Star Wars. And, and this
She's
question,
a Trekkie.
yeah, and this question didn't interest her. So I wanted to do some digging, because now I'm curious, because I thought that it was to me, I think it's pretty good. And so I found this thing, and did you find who actually wrote it?
No, I haven't been able to find that yet.
Okay, so I really want to give We'll give credit. I'll find the website I found this on, and I'll give credit to that person because this is not my writings. It's the same thought that I had, but I'm going to be using their words. So I think it's really really cool. And I know that you have some other ones you want to talk about, but this is mine, so I get to say it. So Order 66 is Executive Order 9066. As anyone who has suffered through the Star Wars prequels knows, which I'll have you know that Steven and I did our own take on the Star Wars prequels, and I don't think they're quite as bad as this person lets on, but I get what they're coming from. They have pain. Order 66 was the order to murder the Jedi given by Chancellor Palpatine to the clone troopers. I've often wondered if there were any real life parallels to this order, and I think I have found one. Because of the upcoming election, many people have been commenting on current candidates and old presidents alike. So this isn't, I don't think this was recent. I think this was back when I think Obama was running, or maybe this was when Trump was originally running. I'd have to look at the date on it when I go back and find where I found this little piece. I often scour Twitter to see what some of the most influential people are saying about the whole process. During one of these late night Twitter reads, I came across a tweet by AOL founder Steve Case that invoked the memory of former President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. This, or FDR. This made me remember one of the low points of American history, Executive Order 9066. Now, this guy, impressively enough, remembers Executive Order 9066. I didn't know that's what it was called. I knew that we put Japanese in concentration camps, but I had no idea that it was like this executive order thing. Makes sense now that I'm learning more about politics. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, FDR gave an order, that executive order, to send Japanese Americans into internment camps, concentration camps, based solely on their ethnic heritage. Since I recently saw Star Wars: The Force Awakens, so this would have been, that might have been the Trump president. I'm trying to remember when Force Awakens came out. I quickly made a connection to Order 66 and Star Wars prequels. So I'm not alone in the world, and I'm not weird. This person did the same
It would have been
thing.
Trump. Force Awakens
Okay,
is
there you
2015.
go. Boom. So there we go, Trump. There are two major points that intrigue me about these two orders. First of all, George Lucas has made it very clear that the Jedi are based on samurai. Since samurai are traditionally associated with Japan, there is a definite parallel between the Jedi that were murdered and the Japanese Americans that were unjustly imprisoned. Also, the order came from a prominent politician that was soon viewed as a hero. So if you think about that, Palpatine was seen as a hero afterwards in forming the Empire. Maybe later not seen as much, but if you think about the Separatists, they actually weren't bad people. The Separatists just had a different view than the Republic did. That's a whole other thing we could get into another time. This spawned the following quote from Padme. So this is how liberty
One of my
dies,
favorite
with
quotes.
thunderous applause. So essentially saying, yeah, it's a pretty amazing quote too. Yeah, and it's good, right? Because everybody loved Palpatine for what he was doing, but he was doing something terrible. In the same way, FDR is one of the most fondly remembered presidents by many, as Mr. Case demonstrated earlier. I don't know what that means. Despite this horrible act that he ordered into action, another interesting parallel is that FDR was accused by many of trying to set himself up as some sort of emperor. Before he was elected, every president had voluntarily given up the office after 2 terms. And if you don't know why that happened, it's because George Washington was our very first president, and he just actually gave up. After 2 terms, he was done. He didn't have to. There's nothing that said that he had to. That actually wasn't a law until I think after FDR. However, FDR ran for 4 terms, and he would have kept going if he hadn't died just after being elected for the 4th term. Oh, so he did get elected for the 4th. Thus, there are many similarities between FDR and Palpatine, especially in this one instance, that are quite interesting. The second point is much more obvious. The last 2 letters of the Executive Order 66 are reused as the order given to murder the Jedi. This is interesting because there are no strict reasons why 66 is chosen in Star Wars, and I like this because there's no orders that you really see, and there might be something in the books, but I hope that this is a really super nerdy person that is more nerdy than I am that already looked into this, but there's no orders of 1 through 65. Why choose 66? I believe that this shows a direct link between Order 9066 and Order 66. What do you guys think about that? I'll just leave it at that since I just ranted for a while.
When you posted this, it was super intriguing. While you were reading it out, I was Googling trying to find it, and I found 3 different articles one of them was this one, but there's no name attached to it. And then 2 other ones from different years where they were talking about the exact same thing. But I think they were done after this, so I don't know if we want to give them credit for this specific one. So,
well, even though this doesn't have a name, let's just put a link to the site that it's on, because it was like a random
yes, I'll do that.
site. Yeah.
But yeah, no. If this is what inspired Lucas to put it into the film, that it's genius. Like tying those 2 things together was genius. And just because I'm Canadian and I like to be, we know history. Executive Order 9066 wasn't just Japanese. There was Italians and German that were interned as well, but Japanese were the largest numbers.
Well, no, the Japanese and the Italians and the Germans, they actually didn't force in. So just to clarify that, because there is a difference. Yes, there were Germans and Italians that were forced into the concentration camps. However, they actually did background checks on them. So there was,
okay.
And so it has to do with the population specifically. So even though because Germans were allies of Japan, that's where this came from. And like, the problem is because of the population of the Germans and the Italians, and because they were a little more, there was a lot of, like I said, hate stuff against the Japanese specifically. They just called them, like, it was Asian hate, really, because the Chinese before that with the railroad and everything. So when you talk about the Italians and Germans, I'm not saying that they weren't, but the way they treated them was much different. So it was just, if you looked Japanese, you were sent, like, I think it's 1/16 Japanese you were sent in, and it wasn't like you had to prove it. It was like an honor system, or if they just saw you look like you looked Japanese. Basically, if you looked Asian, and I'm doing a lot of air quotes, I realize I'm doing these in the air when nobody can see me, but that was the whole deal, right? It was just blatant racism, whereas with Italians and Germans, it's a little harder, right? They look like just normal white folks, right? Just the way that you would think in that time. That's how they did it. So they seriously, they did a little more, they treated the Italians and Germans a little more humanely, is the way I'll put it. The Japanese were just herded in by the droves. Just, you look Japanese, get on the bus, you're coming. And there's a funny video that was done by the government that was shown in theaters beforehand, that was like talking about how they're giving, like, how happy the Japanese are to be in there, and how stoked they are, and like they're in these barbed like fences. It's terrible. And talking about how they're going to have them work the land, and soon they'll make all the deserts and marshes wonderful farmland, while stealing basically all of their land in California, the prominent, amazing land that they had in Cali. It's pretty screwed up, honestly. But you aren't incorrect. Germans and Italians were escorted in. It's just it's a lot different as far as how that treatment went.
Yeah, I knew the Japanese were treated like absolute garbage. So it was just interesting. Once you posted this, I started to look into it, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize the Germans," and because you never hear about the Germans and the Italians and the other people that were included in it.
Right.
You always hear about the way that they treated the Japanese. And in all honesty, again, being Canadian, we did the same thing up here because we followed you guys.
A lot of people did. Australia did it years before us. Australia, we emulated a lot of Australians, the Australian versions of things when we did all these acts and stuff. So we weren't original. We were just doing something other countries had already done. So.
Yeah. And so, Sid, sorry, we went off on a little tangent.
Oh, that's all right. That's okay. I can't. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it. Like I always knew that Order 66 was based on something in real life, because why else would they pick the number 66? But dang, like, that's what they chose.
Well, I don't think it's official. I think this is all speculation. I don't think Lucas has ever said that he did, but I find it hard to believe it's not. Like, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, it's believable. It's believable. It makes sense, but it's like you couldn't have found something else to try to. But I mean, I guess in the movies it is kind of a messed up order to begin with, so they wanted to choose something that was also equally as bad, and I guess they found the perfect one.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's a point, so in the prequels, and it's tough to talk about the Star Wars prequels without upsetting a lot of people because of how, angry they were, but the younger generations,
I used to be one of them,
yeah,
but I watched them again recently, and I don't know. I guess I didn't really have that much of an issue
yeah, they're not as bad on
anymore.
a second viewing or third viewing or fourth viewing. They honestly get better with time. Like they become better movies. And I'm not all of it, right? There's obviously glaring things that are problematic, but I will say the moment that Order 66 went down is a very dramatic time in the movie. It's very like you see these people who are generals, right? The Jedi are generals, these armies, and they've led these clones into battle multiple times. Like, and honestly, you actually Order 66 becomes far more impactful if you watch the Clone Wars cartoon, because then you start getting and falling in love with these clones and the relationships they have with the Jedi they work with, and it makes that moment even more intense, especially when it gets to Yoda and he feels the great loss that all these people that they've been trusted to lead just turn on him and kill him. And so it's just it it's very fitting, and it does, like, because I knew before that Lucas had said that he based them on the samurai, right? That the Jedi
Yeah.
Order was very much based on the samurai, and that makes sense. So it only alludes, to, let's talk about something that's pretty painful or something bad, and still be able to connect it with that kind of that heritage. It would make sense that Lucas would be like, oh yeah, let's do this, because I mean he still had control of that product for the prequels, right? A lot of the reason
Yes.
people say that one of the best things that's ever happened to Star Wars is Lucas giving Star Wars to Disney. Now, some people would disagree now because they don't like what Disney's doing with Star Wars, but either way, everybody, I think, just too judgmental of Star Wars. But anyway,
Just enjoy it.
yeah, right. It's just fun, man. No, I've got some more faith in it. I was talking to a big group about Solo the other day, and we all agreed on how much fun that movie is. Like, just how good of a time it is to take a ride on that. So yeah, Sid, I don't know if I don't think it's official that Lucas has ever admitted that that's what it's based on, but like you said, like it works, right? Like it's impactful. Um, and anytime you
Well, and he'll probably never admit it either, just because of how dark that part of American history is.
Yeah, it's a pretty big
That's
stain.
just my
No, I
opinion.
think
Yeah.
I think that's
He prob
fair.
he probably won't ever admit to that being the basis behind Order 66. Just because, I mean, Pearl Harbor was, and to this day still is, one of the most tragic things that has ever happened to this country, next to 9/11.
Yeah, and that's where I was stationed, was in Pearl Harbor, and we used to do heritage runs when I was in dive school, and you can still see the bullet holes. I did a 120-foot dive in the ocean, got to see a downed Japanese World War II plane. Had a giant sea eel living in the
That would be
cockpit. It was really
incredible.
cool. It was. It's beautiful. It's amazing. Um, but like just all the things you get to see on the Mighty Mo, the Arizona still leaks oil from the bottom of the ocean there. Like it's just
Hmm.
there's a lot of history there for sure. If you ever get a chance to go to Hawaii, I recommend going to Pearl Harbor and seeing the Arizona Memorial. The only reason I say that is because Japan and America came together to do a historical video that you get to see there that is actually incredible if you like history stuff. It's well worth your time. I've seen it probably like 10 times while I was there, but that's because every time somebody would come visit, I would take them to go see it.
You got to take them. Yeah.
Yeah, so I saw it a lot. It's amazing.
Is that why? So when I went to Hawaii for my senior trip, my parents took me, and one of my friends raised enough money to pay for her tickets and stuff to go take me to Hawaii for my senior gift and my graduation gift. And we went to Pearl Harbor, and my dad at one point like whispered to my mom, like, there's a lot of Japanese on this boat going to see this memorial. Are they just going to see their handiwork or what? And mom's like, shh, you can't say that here.
Oh, jeez.
You can't say that here. And my dad's like, I'm just curious. And I mean, honestly, that has stuck with me over the years. Like, what's going on? I didn't realize the Japanese worked with America to make film for that kind of thing. So that makes way more sense to me now, and I can tell my dad, and he can live in peace.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that because it was actually bizarre living in Hawaii because when we would go, I would be in uniform, right? So every now and then we could volunteer to clean up the Mighty Mo. And that's a really cool battleship to get to be aboard. I mean, it's been through a lot of transformations in its time, but you go clean it, so you're in uniform, and you would have a lot of tourists that are there in Hawaii, and they would want pictures with you in uniform, and it's very interesting because specifically for the Navy, right, that was a big battle like that. The bombing of Pearl Harbor, the Navy specifically took a lot of loss that day, and like it's interesting to just see what happened there. And when you look at the history of it and just all the cool things that have happened, or I mean, not cool as in like but just like the interweavings of like history and just like what that did for our response in the war. I mean, we had no choice at that point, right? And like you said, you compare it to something like 9/11. That's very true. And there's also parallels in the racist part of it too, right? If you think about in 1940, one, when the bombing happened, December 7th, there was immediate response of America as a nation, but also hating anybody who looked Japanese, right? When 9/11 happened, there was a bonding together of American again, but that was American minus anybody who looked like they were from the Middle East, right? So it was just, it's very interesting, the parallel. We never learn our lesson, right? The immediate response that we always seem to have is like, boo this person, even though they might not have anything to do with that at all, right? They're just people, normal Americans just living their life, but it always comes back to that. So it's definitely, I think we'll look back and we'll see some of the ways we respond. I mean, we obviously didn't repeat the concentration camp thing, which is good because that was pretty bad. But yeah, it's interesting to think, like in Star Wars, when you talk about like the kind of the travesty that happened. I mean, you had all these really cool Jedi warriors that were, for the most part, they were good, right? When you think about the Jedi Order and what it stood for, it was good. And to see that, these clones, they're microchipped, right? So that's why the Order 66, in case you don't know, Order 66 wasn't like, hey, we turn around and we kill these people just knowingly. No, it's actually a chip that's put into their brain when they're made. The clones are programmed. So Order 66 was a trigger. It was a code word that when they initiated it, it immediately changed the functionality of the clones. So if you didn't know that, that's where it came from. Yeah. So it's not like all these clones when they're in training were like, hey, when Order 66 goes down, you're going to kill all the Jedi. That's not how it worked. And it's not like there was a hierarchy of clones that it was, hey, you're the leader clone, so you need to know that Order 60. No, it was seriously programmed from the beginning on the oh man, what's the planet they made them on? Yeah, either way, that water planet, that water planet where they made it's gonna kill me that I can't remember what it's called. But when they made them there in their training, that's their program that way from the get-go. So it's a switch. So what's cool is in Clone Wars or in Rebels, you end up meeting some of the clones where their switch didn't work. They had microchips. The chip in them was bad. It fried, or it didn't, like it went against it. So they didn't. Kamino. Yeah. So Kamino. So some of the clones, theirs didn't work, so they didn't trigger to kill the Jedi, and they actually went off and rebelled against the Empire and went off on their own.
Apparently,
it's really
some
cool.
of them. I was reading about, again, pardon, you put it up, so I started to dive all in. Some clones found the chips and removed them as well.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. It messed up. It's crazy, man. Yeah. So this anybody, like I said, this is where I can just, I think I do it every time we bring up Star Wars. I praise the Clone Wars cartoon. There's just so much value. There's so much value in watching the Clone Wars cartoon. I wish I could stress.
I'm 1 month away from being able to watch it.
40 days, 40.
Yeah.
However, on Monday when this comes out, it'll be 37 days, but 40 days.
Yeah,
it's so
I
good.
can't wait.
There's a reason to be excited for the new season of Clone Wars. It's just that show is
Or any of Clone Wars in my case.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you guys gotta watch it. Oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah, I told my
Oh,
son that I was going to watch it, and he was like, "Oh!" So he got excited. So we're going to watch it together because he was really into it.
well, your son is better than you, Steven, so.
He is. I've already established this many times.
So I don't think the intention was to spend the entire time on specifically my inspiration for what we're discussing today, and I don't even think we talked about the topic.
Honestly, no, but we could honestly just talk about your topic the whole time.
So welcome to episode 25. I'm Aaron. This is Steve, and we've got Sid here, and we're going to be talking about real life situations in comparison to some of our favorite moments in like sci-fi. And is this a good time to introduce? No, is this not?
No, I think it's a great time to introduce our topic.
Is this how we're gonna do it? Is this what we do?
I think this is a good time.
Yeah. No, I don't think there's much more to say on it. I mean, the whole premise of it, as far as where it comes from and what it is, it's all speculation, right? It just it perked me up, and I was like, oh my god,
makes sense.
That's right. Yeah, the very first thing, like I'd never heard this before, and as soon as I hear it, I look up and I'm like, is that what Order 66 is based off of? Like, not even, just all I hear is Executive Order 9066, and the only thing I hear is Order 66.
66.
Like, oh snap, Jedi gonna die, folks. Jedi gonna die. It's 1940s, and Jedi's gonna pay, right? So I don't know. It's just an interesting thought, I think.
It was totally interesting when you put that out. It instantly triggered it. And then so it triggered the topic, which is cool movies or things that happened in movies that are referenced from real life or other things is kind of where we were ending up going. And so I looked up like movies based on real life, and I was going through the whole list. There's an entire Wikipedia of movies that are based off real life events.
Yeah, have you ever seen what's it called?
Pretty much any war movie.
Yeah, I was gonna go there. I decided not to be a jerk about it, so never mind. But no, you're talking about more like our favorite like science fiction, or our favorite like fantasy, or like what we're doing here with Star Wars, like Order 66. Is that based on a real executive order that was given in America, right? Like, it's an interesting thought piece.
Yeah, and so that's where, when I was compiling the list of references at work that somehow didn't end up in the Discord. I don't know how that happened. I
think you're lying. Anyways, you're making it up. You're like, those, I totally did all this work. I swear, guys. Really, I was just sitting there.
I had like 5. I can't play. Right, I haven't set it up that I can play yet from work. It's coming this week.
I hope but no, work hears that. His boss gets a hold of this podcast, like, oh, is that what you're doing, Steve? All right, well, fair enough.
They know I'm productive when I'm at work. My work gets done in a timely manner. But no, I intentionally was skipping like real life events that inspired war movies based on exactly those events, like Dunkirk and all that. And I was focusing just on science fiction or fantasy stuff where even like a quote inside the movie referenced something real outside. So like Order 66 hopefully referenced, I don't know if I want to say hopefully, but provoked the thought that it came from Executive Order 96. And yeah, I don't have any of those references now, which is a little bit disheartening on my part because I did spend some time looking for those. But
so you say, allegedly.
Allegedly, sorry,
yeah, you run that bank clean, Steve. You're not going to have much saved up by the time you're done.
I'm draining my currency as we go along.
I mean, I wasn't going to say it this time.
Yeah.
But so I'm a huge horror movie buff. Horror movies are very much what I tend to do all the time.
And you're the only one.
Yeah. I am the only one.
Wonderful thing about Steven is he's the only one.
Exactly. And so I found it very interesting, and I shared it, was the movie The Blob, which came out in 1958 originally, and then was redone in 1988.
I'm sorry.
Was actually based on a true story.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
It should have muted.
So
Okay,
this
I'm
is why
done.
people listen.
I'm really sorry that he's the only one.
You
Sorry.
like that?
I can't. That was
I
good.
appreciate it. Thank
No,
you.
it was really good.
Ooh. Oh, I'm sorry. You're gonna have to start over now. My
So
bad.
the blob's a gelatinous mold of eating everything, and that's based off something?
Yeah, so for those that don't watch horror movies or haven't watched The Blob, which again, The Blob isn't like this cinematic masterpiece. It's just one of those old school movies that if you like horror movies, you need to have watched. The premise is there's this gelatinous goo. I believe it was even alien in the movie. It just kind of like rolls and oozes and eats everything in its path, people, buildings, everything. And
I'm
so
a
it's
horror
called The
movie
Blob.
buff. It's my life, but I'm not sure if the blob was an alien in the movie. But you need
I'm
to have
s-
seen it if you're a horror movie person. Way to go, Steven.
Hey, I'm covering my ass. No.
Oh my god, the second sentence though. Huh?
No one got sucked into the garbage disposal like in a horror movie?
Bleh, bleh, bleh.
But it's based on a true event, supposedly true event. And I was shocked. So what ended up happening was in 1950 in Philadelphia, two police officers on patrol reported that they saw what appeared to be a parachute falling down from the sky. They drove to the landing site and they found what they, in the article I shared, they just put something. The original article, which I had found, they described it as a purplish glowing ball of like jelly. And when they turned their lights off, it glowed in the dark. A third person, I believe it was a farmer who lived in the area, came over and he actually touched it, trying to pick it up. And when he picked it up, it broke the surface tension. It completely disappeared, and they were just left with an odorless, sticky residue.
What?
Yeah. So it got like, it grew and changed and eventually became The Blob, which was only 8 years later it became a movie. So it was like it hit big enough that people did. They did within 8 years it became a movie. So that's pretty quick turnaround.
So he touched it and it disappeared?
It broke up. Yeah.
That's nasty.
Did he eat
It seemed to be about 6 feet in diameter, purple, filled with strange crystals, and it was giving off a mist. Naturally, one of them had to touch it.
It was passing gas.
Of
Yeah.
course. Of course. You find something that you don't know what it is, you just gotta
Yeah.
poke it.
I'm surprised he
So
didn't
it
eat it.
dissolved into nothing, leaving the glass underneath unbent.
Wow, okay. It's a little creepy.
Yeah.
Just a
It
little
is.
bit.
And so it spawned a
I'm
horror
not gonna
movie.
sleep tonight, guys.
And this is why we record late at night and I tell you about horror movies and then you have amazing sleeps.
I'm not that one doesn't scare me. You want to bring up Pennywise, that's a different story.
No.
That'll
No.
yeah,
We do not need
yeah,
to talk
right?
about any of that.
We do not say that name.
He is the one who shall not be named.
Ugh, scary clown. I hate clowns.
Yeah.
I hate clowns.
There was another movie which I didn't show the reference to, which it reminded me of.
Hiding secrets now, Sid. Doesn't want us to be a part
I'm
of
totally hiding. It was in the other references.
Don't tell me about your
not
fake
many
references.
people have watched it.
Show me your birth certificate, Stephen. I want to see your tax
But we need to see that birth certificate.
And you're not real, Stephen.
I'm not real. So our favorite geek culture person, Kevin Smith, did a amazing horror movie called Tusk.
So I have not seen that movie. I can't, but God, it intrigued the crap out of me.
I'll be honest, I haven't watched it yet. I haven't found a place to watch it because I haven't seen it on any streaming services. just can't find a place to watch it.
Tusk.
But Tusk. So the premise of the story is a guy, I believe, gets kidnapped, and then he's slowly being turned into a walrus over time by the person who kidnapped him.
The hell?
Exactly. It's based on a true story, kind of inspired by a true event. Yes. So Kevin Smith got the idea from a tweet that somebody shared, which turned out to be a fake ad for a roommate. And so the ad was you could live for free in this apartment with this person if you wore a walrus suit for 2 hours a day.
What are they going to do to the walrus?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
What are they into? What do they want to do with that walrus?
Yeah, but so it intrigued Kevin Smith, which he then in turn made Tusk. So it's one of those funny things where it's like inspired by a true event, and another horror movie that I could reference for inspired by true events.
Was it House of a Thousand Corpses where he took the one glasses wearing dude and put him like half man, half mermaid body? I think that's House of a Thousand Corpses. God, those.
It's possible.
I am in unfamiliar territory.
Yeah, speaking of which, rest in peace to the guy who played the clown.
The clown.
Yeah,
yes.
he was. Hold on, we're gonna get there. But I think House of a Thousand Corpses had this guy in it that he wore. I think it's glasses.
If it wasn't House of a Thousand Corpses, it's it might be Jeepers Creepers, The Wall.
No,
where
Jeepers
stitched people together.
No, Jeepers Creepers. Okay, let's talk about that one for a minute. So,
am I not?
Sid Haig was Captain Spaulding in House of a Thousand Corpses. Yes. So rest in peace, Sid Haig. That dude was. I'd never seen him in anything else. A lot of people had talked about other stuff, other roles he played, but as Captain Spaulding, he was amazing. So I'm trying to see if I can find the guy who I'm thinking of. It might have been Willie Walton. Anyway, so what happened in Jeepers Creepers is completely disappointing. Okay, that guy looked amazing in his costume. Like, he looked awesome. And then they showed him, and he looked stupid. Like, he was really cool when he was mysterious, and like he had the cool hat and the duster and stuff. And then they showed his face, and he just looked dumb. That movie upset me. It was stupid.
It was House of a Thousand Corpses. Bill Fishboy.
Yes.
Bill,
yes.
AKA Fishboy. Yeah.
Yep. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I referenced Jeepers Creepers just because when they went into the well the first time, he had all those people stitched on the wall.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
So I thought maybe. Sorry, Sid.
Oh my God.
Jeepers.
We could get really gross. There's like
where'd you get
movies
those creepers? Jeepers Creepers.
I hate
Where'd you get those eyes?
So I like the horror movies I like are the more old school jump scare tension building thrillers, not just flat out gross.
So let me tell you something. Okay. In high school, all right, in high school for Halloween week or even just during October, right? I would spend weekends with my girlfriends and I, and we would take turns at each other's houses and we would watch scary movies. All right. I've watched like The Omen and the Salem witch trial movies and all kinds of random scary movies. But I tell you what, when it comes to horror and like Saw and all those things with blood, I'm done. Nope. Out, down for the count. But also, if it comes to like religious stuff, like the Exorcist movies, no, won't do it. Won't do it.
The Exorcism.
Talk about it. Won't do it.
The Exorcism of Emily Rose. That movie was scary.
My mom had nightmares for a year. No.
But yeah, Exorcism of Emily Rose is based on a true story.
Are you sure?
Nope.
I am.
We don't need to talk about this.
I will DM you the link after.
How about we don't?
So that I don't. So no, I'm not. I'll DM it to him. It's private. I won't send it to you, Sid. Out of respect.
Thank you.
So funny story. So I'm in high school, right? And we have to write a research paper. And I decide I'm going to write on this mansion, this mansion that had this really crazy backstory, right? So there was this movie about to come out on it, and we were really excited. I don't think it was The Exorcism of Emily Rose. I think it was something else. But I think it might have been Stephen King. I don't remember. Anyway, this specific mansion, I think it had, well, the reason why Rose is coming to mind, I think it had like a stained glass window with a rose on it. And so I got real excited. I was telling my teacher, I was like, hey, I'm actually excited to do the research on this, blah, 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 blah. I could only find one website that would give me information. It turned out that the movie, so whereas I was trying to connect a real thing with a horror movie, like I was trying to connect like real research, it turned out they were using the internet to pump up the story. And so everything they wrote for the story wasn't real. The entire research project was canned because nothing I was researching was actually true. So it turned out none of it was real. They made it all up to hype up the movie.
Nice.
It was a huge bummer. Yeah, I was pissed. I ended up doing something
Haunted
else.
houses don't bother me. I can handle ghosts.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember, honestly. I can't remember the whole deal. That's where Jess got me to watch American Horror Story a few times. That show's not bad. I haven't been like, I really scare easy pretty badly, and I watched the first season. I've never watched the whole thing of any of them. But I saw part of the first season, which is the haunted house. I've seen part of the freak show one, and I saw part of the alien insane asylum one, and all of them were good.
Yeah.
What I saw, the things I saw, apparently the Lady Gaga performance for one of them was really good. So
I guess they're coming out with a new season of that. That's based in like a carnival, like a traveling carnival.
It's based on the 80s.
Yeah. Carnival already happened. Carnival was a few years ago. This one now is called 1984, and it's like 80s slasher flick style.
Yeah.
It takes place at a summer camp. I'm all in. I've already watched it. I'm 3 episodes in. I'm waiting for the 4th episode to come out.
So
there's a lot of people that don't like the season because there's not a lot of returning cast. So that's one of the cool things about American Horror Story is the cast has returned in different roles. Almost majority of the cast has returned.
Yeah, that was their big thing. I remember when they were going to lose the main older lady because she wanted too much money or something was happening with that.
Yeah.
And there was a big deal.
She is not in 1984.
What about the main guy?
He's not in 1984.
Ooh, yeah, that's a bummer. He's really good.
He is.
So let's talk about that since this is actually on subject and on topic since we've veered way off. So talking about real stuff in our favorite fantasy or sci-fi or whatever, horror. I mean, horror is another thing people geek out on hard, right? We could talk about like Ash and how an original B movie rated horror movie became just a comedy, right? With him versus the Evil Dead. Like we could go into that whole thing. But let's talk about that basis. So the 80s. I just want to talk about how you guys feel about how many things now are taking the 80s vibe. So we're seeing the 80s referenced in horror now with how American Horror Story and Stranger Things. We've seen it referenced in our MCU stuff, right? With the Marvel jazz. Like, do you think that they're doing
Ready Player One?
Oh God. Okay, so Ready Player One is a movie I can watch over and over again. I think that movie gets better every time I watch it, and I think
you need to read the book.
See, and I own 2 copies of the book, and I've never read it. I got one in Loot Crate after I'd been recommended to read the book, and I bought the book, and then I got a free copy in Loot Crate. So it was like now I have 2 copies of Ready Player One. It's a movie where I think that they just did an amazing job. So what do you think the 80s are being overplayed, or do you feel like, are you getting tired of it yet? Are either of you getting tired of the 80s?
No, not even a little bit.
No, yeah, I'm with you there, Sid. I'm not yet. I
grew up with a lot of 80s stuff.
Well, and that's why they're doing it. so a lot of people are like, oh, they're just, bringing stuff back to bring stuff back because there's no originality. And I actually think they're doing 80s purely because that's where all the money is. There's so much nostalgia in the 80s for like everybody. So if you think about it, the three of us, we're all slightly different demographics because, I'm old. But 80s were still, I grew up. Like, I remember all of this stuff. You guys are younger, but still, 80s was still very prominent to you. Like, my mom remembers the 80s very prominent, and she's older than all of us, of course. And so it's just
Steve,
like,
if you're older than
she
us,
is.
is your
It just
mom
makes
older
sense.
than you? Is that how?
I was
That
gonna
would make
say,
sense.
I
Thanks.
really liked your
I
pause
know.
after your "I am old" statement. Like you thought we were gonna rebuttal that statement. We're not.
No, I actually thought you were
appreciate
going to
you.
pile on.
Hey, Steve,
I was waiting for the like.
you're older than us, but your mom is younger. So
Yeah, she is younger at heart. So
makes sense. Well done. Your math is, you're just on point today, buddy.
oh god, yes, I'm so off my game. But anyways, it's the reason is the 80s for most people. I think the 80s are probably very fond memories, and so my gut is they're milking the 80s for everything they can because it is so fond and so impactful to everybody.
Is that your gut or is it just obvious? I mean, really, because
Probably both.
I don't know. Neither of you are.
Nostalgia is powerful. We've seen how nostalgia is powerful with all kinds of things, including any Marvel or DC movie that comes out, or all of the Star Wars movies, the new Star Wars movies. I guarantee you they wouldn't be so popular if nostalgia wasn't a thing. Because most of the people going and watching Star Wars are people that have been watching them for like the past 40 years. Let's be real.
No, I
You got 40
agree.
years, you've got 40 years worth of people, right, trying to go and see these movies. It's just going to get bigger and bigger because there's a lot of nostalgia. Star
Listen,
Wars is never going to die.
I'm on record on this show saying how powerful nostalgia is, so I can't disagree with you there. You're very right. I just
Don't disagree with me about Star Wars either because
I won't disagree with you on that.
okay, good.
I would never. I don't disagree with you on the nostalgia factor in general. I think it is very powerful. You guys aren't sick of it?
Are you?
Yeah, I am. I don't know. If everybody's
Tell
just
me why.
because like it's over like there's a point when it's just copying everyone else, I guess. Like you know what I mean? So for instance,
It's all based in the 80s. It's not copying each other. It's just displaying multiple facets of the 80s.
Yeah, but if you have American Horror Story, for instance, so Stranger Things Stranger Things kind of started this whole thing, right? We got kind of this nostalgia factor from Stranger Things in the 80s, right? With the first season, which has been a few years now. So I remember that's actually when Stranger Things came out was the first time I ever saw American Horror Story. And I don't remember what season they were on, but they definitely weren't on this one. So what I'm saying is the 80s is now just a trend thing, is what I'm saying. So I'm kind of tired of it. That's all I'm saying. Like, do I love that Thor went with this like retro vibe? Yeah, but they did it because
God, it was amazing.
Yes, and okay, I'm not Ragnarok's an amazing movie. I'm not taking away from that. What I'm saying is that I got that because they saw that Guardians sold, right, with its little nostalgia factor that it played in, right, with the 70s, 80s music that it did, because of when Quill was taken away, his music only goes up to that point, right? So they have this like basis of doing it. Stranger Things had its thing. So now it's just people. What I'm saying is, yes, you're right. They're doing their own version, but they're doing it because it's selling because of nostalgia. I get why they're doing it, but like Pen 15, the whole penis thing, right? All this stuff that happened from early. So everybody's just doing their version of that time. And I don't know. I feel like I'm just kind of over it. Like I don't care anymore. Like it's not new, so it's not interesting. It's not original anymore. I don't know. Is that the wrong way to look at it? everybody basing their shit on the crap. I've been doing so good. Everybody basing their stuff on the 80s. I've been doing so much better than you, Steve, and I've been proud of
You have been doing much better than me.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. There, I said it. I don't need you to keep selling me the 80s. Like it is what it is. Whatever. I'll probably still watch stuff.
There it is, folks. We have our first argument.
I have hoped that one of you would have agreed with me, but neither of you are. You're okay with them just constantly just berating you.
We have our first argument on air, and this is why you asked for me to be here.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one though, Sid. I'm not done with the 80s yet.
Oh my god. Yeah, you are.
There are lots of people
20 years, 30 years ago. When did
it did end 30 years ago.
Jesus.
I'm not there yet because even so, using the American Horror Story as the example, there are people that are absolutely hating the season because of how campy and out there it is. It is full.
That's not a good reason. That doesn't defend my argument.
But it does, because people are tired of the 80s, and that's why they're hating this, because it is full on 80s. Like, you cannot get, if you watch this, it is not more 80s than this. The intro is retro, like you're watching VHS. There's like on-screen artifacts.
That's all
tape.
right.
It's a tape. Stop calling VHS as tapes.
Yeah, that still doesn't defend my argument though. Like, they're not sick of it because the 80s, are sick of it because it's campy. Being campy is true of the 80s, but I'm saying I'm sick of the constant just doing 80s to do 80s because it sells, right? I have no problem with them being true to the 80s. Like, I'm not okay. So to put it,
but then we could turn it and be like, "Are you tired of Marvel movies because they're just doing them to make money?" Now.
Again, I would probably still enjoy the campiness of the American Horror Story. I would probably still enjoy it. I'm just tired of it. That's the difference, right? I can appreciate them doing the 80s right, but I also am just tired of people doing the 80s because it'll sell. That's my difference. That's why I'm saying what they're saying doesn't sell my argument. They just don't like it, right? They don't like that they're doing it the way they're doing it. I can appreciate the art form of having fun, indulging in that time period, but I don't like the fact that just everybody's doing it because it sells. That's more what I'm saying. When James Gunn did the 80s theme in his, it had a purpose, right? Stranger Things is set in a certain time that's evolving past that. Like, they're in the 90s now, I think. Or at least
I think they're still 80s. They're getting closer.
Yeah, but they're getting to that point. And with season 4 coming out, like, but it's worked in their timeline, right, with where they're at. Like, it has purpose. And even with like Thor really didn't do 80s stuff, but it did in its own way. Like, it was a really cool facet of that, and I think Watiti did a really good job of it. And I'm sure American Horror Story and the way they're doing it is fine, but to say that I just wouldn't like something because of that is not fair. I'm just saying I'm tired of it. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to like anything. It just means that I'm tired of it. Like, I
That's
think
fair.
Yeah, it's just I'm tired of seeing it. Like, oh, hey, this new show's going to come out, and guess what? The theme's going to be 80s because it sells. So let's just do it. That's my problem, right?
That's
it doesn't
fair.
mean that I won't like it. It just means that it's boring, right? Do something interesting. Like, don't just do the 80s to do the 80s. Like, do something interesting with it. So that's my point. That's all I'm getting at.
No, I mean, it's a fair point. I give you that. All right, so we can let's get to the Sid's reference that she shared. So we get back to somewhat on topic for what we can.
That was still on topic.
Talk about.
That's comparing something
in real life. It was still. It was very on top. If you actually listen to everything we've talked about, everything has been actually pretty close to what our topic was. We just veer very far in depth into what those topics are, but it's still on. We're still on topic.
I'll show you in depth, Stephen.
Wow. Graphic.
Yeah.
Dirty.
So did you want to talk about yours, Sid?
Which one was that? Oh, the opening credits of Star Wars.
Yes.
Yes, sure. So I found on some random website a bunch of famous scenes and former movies / TV shows that they were inspired by. And it turns out George Lucas actually was inspired by a lot of other things prior to making his Star Wars stuff. So one of the most famous opening credits in history is your Star Wars scenes, where you see a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away in green words or in green letters going across your screen, and then everything goes black. And then with the opening notes of the Star Wars theme song, you see like this huge flash and it says Star Wars, and then it just starts rolling through your intro. Yeah, you gonna hum it for us? You start
No.
rolling through the intro that explains, what happened between the episodes. Turns out George Lucas was actually inspired to create this rolling credits, opening credits by the Flash Gordon series in the late 30s and early 40s, which I've never watched any of the old Flash Gordon stuff. Not really my thing.
I've seen
I'm sorry,
clips.
guys. I'm sorry, guys. That's all I know, and I don't even remember why I know that. God, what movie is that, guys?
Ted.
Thank you. Ted is the reason why I know who Flash Gordon is.
Yeah.
The Thunder Buddies.
Yeah, Thunder Buddies for life.
Ted is why I know who Flash Gordon is.
It's wicked smart. It's wicked smart. It's just wicked.
Anyways, like the last couple of sentences in that section are like the Flash Gordon serials were massive inspirations to George Lucas. Nowhere is that influence felt more than in the opening credit crawls, which were directly copied from the Flash Gordon serials. And the link that I showed, the little video that's with it, that shows the Flash Gordon one in comparison to the Star Wars one, it's pretty obvious that that's what he was copying. So
totally, and I'll have that in the show notes because it is very telling.
I think it's super cool.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
good
obvious.
find, girl. Good find. That's just the universe.
I can't sing to save my life. Oh my God, people. So my phone, I have Do Not Disturb on, right? But every time it'll still light up, right? And people are tagging me on Facebook right now in stupid stuff that have spiders in them, and I want to kill them all.
Have you ever seen the movie Arachnophobia?
Sorry, I just had to get that off my chest. I want to kill them all. Nope.
It's so good.
Nope. Don't even start.
Such a good movie.
I lost a spider in the garage earlier, and I feel like I need to burn it down. Okay, the garage,
my mom,
mind you, it's not even in the house. It's in the garage, and I want to burn it to the ground.
So my mom is an extreme arachnophobic person. Like, even toy spiders, like, don't look real at all, and she freaks out. She's kind of passing it on to my kids.
I love Halloween, but I hate Halloween decorations.
We were going to get in the car the other day. I was taking the kids to school, and Lily, who's my middle daughter, she goes downstairs, opens the door. I hear the door close, and I'm like, oh, she's in the garage. And then all of a sudden, she's back up at the top of the stairs. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, there is a spider in the garage. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, there is a spider on the wall. And I'm like, whatever. And I go down and look, and so at her height, because she's, I want to say 4-footish, she could see directly through the driver's door, through to the passenger door, because both windows were down because it was inside the garage. And on the wall on the opposite side of the car was this, it's not a I'm going to kill you spider, but it was a spider. It was decently sized, and he was just sitting there hanging out on the wall. And she's like, oh, Dad, you need to get rid of him. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to. He eats the bugs. He can stay. And she was freaking out so bad. I'm like, just climb through the driver's door. You'll be fine.
I had a family member take a golf club to a banana spider on the garage wall. We found the banana spider's corpse about 2 years later when we had to move out.
Banana spiders
took a golf
are
club
awesome.
to it because it was so big.
They are they are huge, but my childhood going to my buddy Patrick's house, because he lived out in the country, so you'd have these massive banana spiders with these huge
Oh
webs.
my God, I hate you.
Yeah. And so what we would do is we'd challenge each other to go, we'd catch grasshoppers and we'd throw them into the web and watch it spin them up. It was really fun.
They eat birds.
Yeah. So you should see Arachnophobia. You really should. No. I mean, because the end is so good.
Can we get back
and John
on
Goodman's
topic or
amazing
say
in it
goodnight
as
or
the
something? I need to go
Exterminator.
burn some things.
The
Yeah.
Exterminator.
Nope.
They find out that the
They do,
whole
actually.
town,
There's a-
like the guy who the main character, it turns out his basement. I think it's his basement
Do
or
they
his
just
cellar
explode the
or
shit?
something. Anyway, it's like the spiders are smart.
it's a cellar.
Like the
His wine
mother,
cellar.
the queen, if you will, of the spiders almost is like that's where it's all happening is in his cellar. And so he takes, is it WD-40? He makes a flamethrower and he starts icing, like just burning stuff down. It's awesome. Yeah. Anyway.
And the spiders in the movie don't exist in real life because they're a hybrid of a common house spider and then like some super crazy South American spider that came back on a block.
Well, like it's this whole
I know,
thing.
but they're
Oh
not-
no, you're good. It's this whole thing.
No.
Like you should see it. It's actually
You're not making
John
me feel
Goodman's
any better because
hilarious
common
in
house
this
spiders
movie.
are fucking huge.
It's not really
Sorry.
a horror movie.
Oh my gosh,
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
It really isn't. Yeah,
This
it's
is
a
a good
really
movie.
it's a
It
good
happens
flick.
to have
I
a lot
watched
of
that one as a
spiders.
kid just fine. It's really good. But yeah, no, that sounds like a good time. Tell them how they can reach us, Steve.
Yeah. So you can reach me on Twitter at CanYouGeek. He's at Errane is at Southern Designs. I gotta stop saying he and she because
Steve feels like he's more important than we are.
Errane is at Southern Designs.
It's like, don't give me this
No,
nonsense.
okay.
We gotta make it more even. So, and, Sid is at Sid Stare. Send her spider pictures.
Ooh, lots
please.
of
Don't
spider
do it.
pictures. Your favorite spider pictures.
I'm gonna delete my Twitter.
You can share all of those spider pictures though on our Facebook page,
Oh
which
my
is
God, I hate
at
you.
Can You Geek Podcast.
I should have
If
never
you
said anything.
If you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out to us.
More topic suggestions so we don't talk about spiders.
Yeah. I have no problem talking about spiders. I think that I might even have a black widow living in my
I think we
garage.
should do a lower Patreon level to let them into our Discord and then just allow them to just put all the spider pictures and GIFs and animations they want there. That'd be good.
Well, the show notes have our Discord link in there already.
Oh yeah, there's the guest
so
Discord.
anybody that
Yeah.
joins, there is a guest part, and I will make a guest spider page,
smart.
and then anybody can come in and put
And just
spiders.
make sure
There
you
we go.
at
Oh.
Sid. So she's Squid in the Discord. Just at Squid with
Yeah,
every
she's
spider
Squid.
picture. So that way she knows that she's getting cared for with all the spider love.
I'm gonna get so many spiders from Popo.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, that might happen.
Oh,
But they're gonna be in the
okay.
kitchen, so there's that.
So I guess on that note, we can actually sign
Yeah.
off and say later, nerds.
Later, nerds.
Later, nerds.
Today's music is used by permission from the artist Broke for Free. The song is called Something Elated. You can find it on freemusicarchive.org under the user